The great council chamber of Celestra Prime was full again. Leaders from every star system sat in their shining seats. The air buzzed with quiet talk. Reports of trade, peace, and small border disputes filled the room. Lyra Vance sat at the back in the observer's seats. She listened, but her mind wandered. She looked at the empty seats across the chamber. 5 dark seats. Dust had started to gather on them. No one spoke of them anymore, not in any serious way. Those were the human seats. It had been 50 years since humans walked away. No warning, no message. They just left. They closed their colonies. They shut down their stations. Every human ship vanished from space. Even their great home, Earth, went silent. The council had laughed at first. Let them go, they said. Good riddance. Humans had always been strange. They fought harder than anyone. They built faster than anyone. They broke rules, made their own ways, and somehow always won in the end. Some feared them. Some hated them. But no one could ignore them until they were gone. Now, 50 years later, the council treated their empty seats like a joke. Leaders told stories of how humans were weak, too scared to face the future. They said humans had no place in the clean, perfect order of the galaxy. Lyra didn't laugh. She had never met a human. She was born after they left. But she had studied them. She had read their books. She had watched old footage of their battles, their speeches, their wild, fearless ideas. And she felt something no one else seemed to feel. Fear. Humans didn't seem like the type to run away. They didn't seem like the type to quit. And the fact that they had, without a fight, without a word, kept her awake at night. She leaned forward, listening to the high speaker. The system of Voris has settled its border trade, the high speaker announced. We now move to the next matter. He paused, smiling. The annual discussion of Earth's empty seats. Soft laughter filled the chamber. Lyra's stomach tightened. 50 years, the high speaker went on, and still no word from the mighty humans. Do we mark their seats closed at last? More laughter. Chancellor Corrin Thal stood. His long dark robe swept the floor as he walked to the center. His voice, deep and strong, filled the room. Mark them closed? No, he said. Let them sit empty forever. A reminder to all who dare to challenge the council. The humans thought they were above us. They thought they didn't need us. Look where they are now. Gone. Forgotten. The chamber cheered. Lyra felt sick. She stood and quietly left the chamber. No one noticed. She walked the long halls of the council archive. Tall shelves of data crystals stretched high above her head. Few came here. Most records were old and forgotten. She walked to a small, dusty section labeled Human Affairs. Most of the crystals were gone, locked away or destroyed by order of the council. Only a few broken records remained. Lyra reached behind a shelf. Her fingers touched something cold and smooth. A hidden crystal. Her heart raced. She looked around. No one was there. She slipped the crystal into her coat and hurried to her small quarters. Hours passed as she worked to unlock the old crystal. The data was damaged, old, corrupted. But then, something appeared on the screen. A single message. A human voice, soft but clear. If you're hearing this, then you know we are gone. But we did not leave out of fear. We left because we saw what is coming. The voice paused. A long, heavy silence followed. The null is real. It is patient. It is death. And it is coming for you all. Lyra stared at the screen, her mouth dry. One day, you will beg us to return. But by then, it may be too late. The screen went dark. Lyra sat in silence for a long time. The words echoed in her mind. The null is real. She didn't know what the null was. No one had ever spoken of it before. But she knew one thing for sure. Humans hadn't run. They had warned the galaxy, and the council had ignored them. She knew she had to tell someone. She had to bring this to the council. She stood, grabbed the crystal, and walked toward the chamber. Lyra didn't sleep that night. She kept playing the message over and over. Each time, the words felt heavier. The null is real. It is patient. It is death. By morning, she knew what she had to do. She dressed quickly and tucked the crystal safely inside her coat. She walked through the halls with purpose. When she reached the council chamber, the guards gave her a curious look. Observers didn't speak to the council without permission. But Lyra walked straight past them. The chamber was full again. Another day, another meeting. Chancellor Corrin stood at the center, speaking about resource plans for the core worlds. The leaders nodded along, calm and bored. Lyra stepped onto the floor. A low hum of confusion spread across the chamber. Corrin turned to look at her, his sharp eyes narrowing. "You do not have permission to speak," Corrin said coldly. "I must," Lyra replied, her voice shaking but steady. "It's important." Corrin sighed. "You have 1 minute. Do not waste it." Lyra held up the crystal. "I found a human message. It speaks of a threat called the Null. They didn't run away. They warned us. Something terrible is coming." The room fell quiet for a moment. Then Corrin laughed. "Another human trick. Let me guess, they left this message to scare us? To make us miss them?" "No," Lyra said. "They left it because they knew what was coming. The message sounded real. They believed it. You have to listen." The council members began whispering. Some looked nervous. Others rolled their eyes. Corrin raised his hand. The whispers stopped. "You waste our time," he said. "Humans always used fear to control others. You are young, Lyra Vance. You were not there when they caused chaos in this council. You do not know their ways." Lyra stood her ground. "I know they never ran from a fight. Something scared them. Something bigger than us." Corrin stepped closer to her. His voice dropped low, almost like a threat. "You will leave this chamber now. You will not speak of this again. If you do, you will be removed from your post." Lyra's throat felt tight. She wanted to say more. She wanted to shout. But she knew the council had already made up their minds. Slowly, she turned and left the chamber. 3 days passed. Lyra waited, watched, and listened. She kept checking the council news feeds. She searched the deep networks, looking for any sign of strange events. Then, on the 4th day, it happened. The outer system of Terrias 6 went silent. At first, it was just a rumor, a passing report on a small news channel. But soon, more reports followed. Terrias 6 had stopped sending signals. No ships were leaving or entering. Probes sent to the system were not coming back. Lyra's heart pounded as she watched the reports grow more serious. Finally, the council called a special meeting. Lyra sat quietly in her usual place. Corrin stood before the gathered leaders, his face tight with concern. "We have lost contact with Terrias 6, he announced. "All efforts to reach them have failed. We have sent 3 scout ships. None have returned." The chamber filled with uneasy whispers. Lyra stood. She could not stay silent. "This is the Null," she said loudly. "The humans warned us." All eyes turned to her again. This time, there was no laughter. Corrin scowled. "Enough. You will not speak again." But Lyra didn't sit down. "Look at the facts. A whole system gone. No signals. No reki. No survivors. This is exactly what the message warned about." Corrin's face turned red with anger. "Get her out of here." 2 guards rushed to her side. They grabbed her arms. "You are blind," Lyra shouted as they pulled her away. "You think humans are our enemy, but they try to save us. You're going to doom us all." The chamber doors slammed shut behind her. Lyra sat alone in her quarters. Her hands shook with fear and rage. She knew she couldn't stay. The council would silence her forever if she did. She packed a small bag. She hid the crystal deep inside. Then she walked to the hangar bay. Her access code still worked, at least for now. She found a small scout ship, one barely used. It was fast, light, and quiet. As the hangar doors opened, she looked back once. Celestra Prime shined bright against the stars. She whispered to herself, "I'll find the truth, even if I have to leave everything behind." Lyra pressed the launch button. The ship slipped into space, leaving the council and its lies far behind. She didn't know where the path would lead, but she knew she had to follow it. Lyra watched the stars stretch around her ship. She was alone now, far from the safety of the council, but she felt more alive than she had in years. Her small ship hummed softly. The lights on the control panel blinked in steady rhythm. She had no real plan, but she had a direction. She had spent years studying human history in secret. She remembered old reports of human outposts near the rim, the edge of known space. That's where she would start. It took 2 days to reach the first outpost. It was called Elysium Station, once a proud human hub for research and trade. Now it floated dark and lifeless. The docking ports were sealed. No lights, no signals, no life. Lyra's ship latched onto one of the docking arms. She grabbed a small scanner and stepped inside the airlock. The doors hissed open, revealing darkness and dust. She moved slowly through the empty halls. Her boots echoed on the metal floor. Old signs marked the way to control rooms, storage bays, and living quarters. Everything was frozen in time, as if the humans had left in a hurry. She found the control center and powered up the backup systems. Weak lights flickered to life. Screens showed old logs, most of them corrupted or locked. One file caught her eye. It was marked Outpost Shutdown, Final Orders. She opened it. All crew ordered to return as sole command. No explanation given. Full evacuation within 12 hours. That was it. No reason. No warning. Just a rushed evacuation. Lyra leaned back in the chair. Why had they left so quickly? What had they seen? Her scanner beeped softly. A trace signal. Faint but real. It came from another station, deeper on the edge of the rim. Lyra left Elysium Station and set her course for the new signal. The journey took another day. This station was smaller. It had no name on record. The signal grew stronger as she approached. Someone had been here. Maybe someone still was. She docked again, heart pounding. This station was different. Lights still worked. Doors opened without a fight. And on the walls, she saw fresh markings, human military codes. This place had not been left empty for long. As she walked deeper inside, her scanner beeped again. Stronger now. Something was active. Then she heard it. A voice over the speaker system. Whoever you are, turn back now. Lyra froze. The voice was deep, steady, and human. She stepped closer to the speaker. My name is Lyra Vance, she called out. I come from the council. I'm looking for the truth. Silence filled the station. Then the voice spoke again. You are not welcome here. I found your warning, she said quickly. The null. It's real, isn't it? The council won't listen to me. But I will listen to you. Please. Another long silence. A door unlocked ahead of her. Slowly, she walked through it. She entered a large control room. Armed humans stood by the walls, their weapons ready. At the center stood a tall man with short dark hair and a sharp, tired face. I'm Captain Elias Ward, the man said. And you are a fool for coming here. Lyra raised her hands to show she was unarmed. Please, I just want to understand. Elias studied her for a moment. He gave a small nod to the guards. They lowered their weapons but stayed close. You have 5 minutes, Elias said. Speak. Lyra told him everything. The silent system. The missing ships. The council's refusal to believe. She showed him the crystal with the warning message. Elias shook his head slowly. They never listened, he muttered. Not then. Not now. Lyra leaned forward. You knew about the null. What is it? Why did you leave? Elias sighed and sat down. The guard stayed silent. We left because the council thought they could control the galaxy without us, he said. They laughed when we warned them. They called us liars, manipulators. So we walked away. We took our people, our ships, and hid out here. Preparing. Waiting. Preparing for what? Lyra asked softly. Elias's face darkened. For the end. He stood and walked to a large display screen. He pressed a button. Images filled the screen. Ships torn apart. Stars going dark. Entire systems erased. Lyra felt her stomach twist. This is the null, Elias said. It's not an army. It's not a weapon. It's something else. A dark force that consumes life, light, and matter. We found traces of it long before we left. We tried to warn the council. They called us liars. Why didn't you fight it then? Lyra asked. We weren't ready, Elias answered. And we knew the council would only make it worse. So we left. We've spent 50 years preparing, building weapons, studying the dark. But now it's here. Lyra took a step closer. Come back. Help us. The council might listen now. Elias turned to her, his eyes cold. Why should we help them, he asked. They threw us away. They mocked us. Let them face what they refused to believe. Lyra felt her heart sink. She knew he was right in some way. But she also knew the galaxy needed them now more than ever. Because if you don't, she whispered, everyone will die. Not just the council. Not just the core worlds. All of us. Elias didn't answer. He turned away, staring at the dark images on the screen. Elias Ward stood silent for a long time. His hands rested on the edge of the display table. His sharp eyes stared at the dark images on the screen. Lyra waited, heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight in the air. Every second felt like an hour. The guards didn't move. No one spoke. Finally, Elias let out a long breath. He turned to her again. You think words will change what they did to us? His voice was low and heavy. They called us dangerous, unstable. They forced us out. We begged them to listen. They spat in our faces. Lyra nodded. I know what they did was wrong, but this isn't about the council anymore. It's about the galaxy, about all of us. Elias studied her face as if searching for a lie, but he saw only fear and honesty. He waved his hand toward one of the guards. Bring her, he ordered. The guards didn't argue. They followed Elias as he led Lyra through the long, dim corridors of the station. They stopped in front of a sealed door. Elias pressed his hand on the panel. The door slid open with a heavy hiss. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Beyond the door was a massive hangar. Hundreds of human ships filled the space, sleek, dark, and armed with weapons she didn't recognize. Soldiers worked in silence, loading supplies and checking systems. Elias turned to her. This is what we've built. We've stayed hidden for 50 years. Training, preparing, watching. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes wide with shock. You never gave up. No, Elias said. We knew the day would come. The day the council would realize they were wrong. The day they would come crawling back. He faced her again. His face showed no joy, only pain. And now here you are. Lyra nodded. We need you. The galaxy needs you. Please. Elias crossed his arms. Why should I trust you? What makes you any different from the rest of them? Lyra swallowed hard. She knew she had no title, no power, but she had something real. Because I listened, she said softly. Because I believe you. I left the council. I risked everything to find you. Not for them, but for all the people who will die if we do nothing. Elias watched her for a long moment. The guard stayed tense, waiting for his order. Finally, Elias turned and walked toward the center of the hangar. He raised his hand. The soldiers stopped what they were doing. This is Lyra Vance, Elias called out. His voice echoed through the hangar. She brings word from the council. The threat we feared is here. The Null has begun its attack. The soldiers looked at each other, murmuring in low voices. Elias continued. She asked for our help. But the council has not asked. They have not apologized. They have not changed. He turned to Lyra again. His face was hard as stone. If we fight, it will be on our terms, he said. We will not serve them. We will not answer to them. We fight for the galaxy, not for the council. Lyra nodded quickly. Yes, anything. Just help us stop this. Elias looked around at his people. He gave a sharp nod. Prepare the fleet. We move at once. The hangar burst into life. Soldiers ran to their stations. Ships roared to life. Lights blinked across control panels. Lyra stood in the middle of the chaos, unable to believe what she was seeing. Elias walked back to her. You'll come with us, he said. You'll speak for the council when the time comes. Lyra nodded, though fear tightened her chest. She knew Corin would not welcome her return, but she had to try. Later that day, the fleet launched into space. Lyra sat in the command seat beside Elias on the lead ship, the Valor's Edge. She watched as hundreds of human warships formed a sharp, powerful formation. Set course for Celestra Prime, Elias ordered. The fleet moved as one, engines burning bright. Lyra gripped the armrest tightly. The council was not ready. They had laughed. They had mocked. But the humans were coming back. Not as servants. Not as outcasts. As saviors. The journey back to Celestra Prime took 2 days. The human fleet moved fast and silent through deep space. Lyra stayed on the bridge of the Valor's Edge, watching the stars pass by. Elias stood at the front window, his hands behind his back. He didn't speak much. He seemed lost in thought, or maybe in old anger. Lyra didn't blame him. She could feel the weight of what was coming. Every few hours, new reports came in. More systems had gone silent. More ships lost. No survivors. The Null was spreading faster than anyone expected. But Celestra still stood. For now. As they near the core systems, the fleet received their first contact. A weak message blinked on the screen. Emergency call, Celestra Prime under siege. All forces respond. The voice was cracked and broken, but there was no doubt. Celestra was under attack. Elias turned to his crew. Increase speed. Ready all weapons. Lyra leaned forward. We have to warn them we're coming. They might shoot first and ask questions later. Elias nodded. Send the signal. Tell them we bring aid, whether they want it or not. When the human fleet reached Celestra's outer defense line, they saw the disaster for themselves. Massive black clouds hung in space like living shadows. Strange shapes moved inside the darkness. Ships from the Council fleet fired into the void, but their weapons had no effect. One by one, the ships fell silent, swallowed by the dark. The null had arrived. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen anything like it. It wasn't just darkness, it felt alive. It spread like smoke, but it moved with purpose like it was hunting. The human fleet spread out, forming a wide wall in front of Celestra. Elias stood tall. His voice was calm but strong. Fire at will. Hold the line. The first wave of human weapons hit the dark clouds. Bright light filled the void. Strange shapes screamed as they burned. The human weapons worked. The null pulled back, shrinking like a shadow under a bright light. The Council ships paused. For the first time in 50 years, they saw human ships fighting beside them. A message flashed on the human ship screen. Chancellor Corinthal requesting communication. Elias didn't move. Put him through, he said flatly. Corin's face appeared on the screen. He looked older, more tired than Lyra remembered. His voice was heavy with anger and shame. Why are you here? Corin demanded. Elias stood in front of the screen, his face unreadable. Saving your people, he answered coldly. You come without permission. You disobey our laws, Corin snapped. Elias leaned forward, his voice sharp. Your laws mean nothing now. We warned you. You laughed. Now you beg for help. Corin's face twisted in anger, but he said nothing. Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding. Chancellor, you have no choice. If you want to live, you must let them lead. The silence stretched. Finally, Corin spoke, his voice low and bitter. Do what you must. Celestra cannot fall. The screen went dark. Elias turned to his crew. All ships advance. We drive them back. The human fleet surged forward. Their weapons burned brighter than anything the Council had ever seen. The dark shapes screamed louder. The clouds of the null shook and pulled back again. Lyra watched in awe as humans and Council ships began to fight side by side. But the battle was not over. The darkness gathered again, stronger than before. Elias leaned toward Lyra. This is just the beginning. We stop them here, or we lose everything. Lyra nodded. She knew he was right. She had never been more afraid, but she had never been more certain. The humans had returned, and now the real fight had begun. The dark clouds circled the planet like a living wall. Celestra's sky turned black. The city lights below flickered like dying stars. The Council's grand towers, once shining and proud, now trembled under the weight of fear. Lyra stood on the command bridge of the Valor's Edge. Her heart pounded as she watched the clouds tighten their grip around the planet. If they failed here, Celestra would fall, and the rest of the galaxy would follow. Elias Ward stood in front of her. He turned to his crew. His voice was steady, but his face was tight with focus. Form the shield ring. Hold the front. No ship moves alone. Human ships began moving into position. Hundreds of them formed a wide circle around Celestra. Engines glowed. Weapons charged. The Council ships held back, unsure. They had never fought beside humans like this. They didn't know if they could trust them. Elias opened the comm channel. To all Council ships, his voice echoed through every speaker. If you stay where you are, you will fall. If you follow us, you may live. Make your choice. The comm line went silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one Council ship moved forward. Then another. Soon, dozens of Council ships joined the human formation. They had no other choice. Lyra looked out into the dark. The null began to press forward again. The black cloud stretched toward them, slow but steady. Strange shapes moved inside. long, twisted shadows. They looked like ships, but they moved like they were alive. No engines, no lights, only darkness. Lyra felt her skin go cold. "What are they?" she whispered. Elias answered without looking away. "Not ships, not machines. Something worse." He raised his hand. "All ships, fire." Bright streams of energy shot from the human fleet. The sky lit up. The dark shapes screamed again, pulling back. Council ships joined the fight, firing their weapons into the black mass. The air shook with the force of it. For a moment, Lyra thought they might win. But then the darkness pushed back. The null changed. It moved faster, sharper. The black cloud split into hundreds of smaller shapes. They rushed toward the fleet like a swarm of living knives. Human ships fired again and again. Some shapes burned and broke apart, but many broke through the line. Council ships started falling, one after another. The sky was filled with burning wreckage. Elias slammed his fist on the console. "Close the gaps. Don't let them reach the surface." Lyra watched in horror as 3 council ships exploded in front of her eyes. Pieces of metal and fire drifted through space like broken bones. The null kept coming. Elias turned to Lyra. His face was pale, but his voice was clear. "There's one last chance." He pulled up a display of the Valor's Edge. A deep-core energy reactor blinked on the screen. "This ship carries the only weapon strong enough to tear the null apart." Lyra's eyes widened. "What kind of weapon?" Elias looked at her. His face was hard. "A self-destruct core. If we overload it and drive the ship into the heart of the dark, it might break the swarm." Lyra's throat tightened. "But that means—" "Yes," Elias said quietly. "It means this ship will be destroyed." Lyra looked at the crew, men and women who had trained for this day. She knew they were ready to die if they had to. But she didn't want to lose them. She didn't want to lose him. "There must be another way," she whispered. Elias shook his head. "There isn't. This is what we prepared for." He turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare to evacuate. I will take the ship and myself." The crew hesitated. One of the officers stepped forward. "Captain, that's an order," Elias said sharply. The crew nodded, faces pale but steady. They began to move, filing out one by one toward the escape pods. Lyra grabbed Elias's arm. "You don't have to do this alone." "Yes, I do," he said. His voice was softer now. "You have to lead them after this is over. You have to make sure this never happens again." Tears filled Lyra's eyes, but she nodded. Minutes later, all escape pods launched toward the planet. Lyra stood in the last one, watching as Elias took the command seat one last time. The pod door closed. The engine fired. Lyra's heart felt like it would break. She watched through the small window as the Valor's Edge turned toward the dark clouds. The ship's engines roared. It pushed into the heart of the null. The darkness swallowed it whole. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Then light. The sky exploded in a wave of pure energy. The darkness shook, cracked, and shattered. The strange shapes screamed and broke apart. The black clouds began to pull back, shrinking into nothing. The battle was over. Celestra was safe. Lyra stood on the surface, looking up at the sky. Council ships circled above. Human ships floated beside them. The people of Celestra stood in silence, watching the sky clear for the first time in days. Chancellor Corrin stood beside her. His face was pale, his voice soft. "He saved us." Lyra nodded. They all did. Corrin turned to her. His voice shook with guilt. "We were wrong. About all of it." Lyra didn't answer. She just kept looking up, knowing Elias had given everything so they could live. The galaxy would remember this day, and she would make sure they never forgot who saved them. The people of Celestra stood together in the streets, staring up at the sky. No one spoke. No one cheered. The battle was won, but the cost hung in the air like heavy smoke. The Valor's Edge was gone. Captain Elias Ward, the man who had led the last human fleet, had given his life to save them all. Lyra stood among them. She felt the loss like a weight on her chest. But deep inside, she also felt something else, hope. The null was gone. The galaxy had survived. The council chamber reopened 2 days later. This time, the mood was not proud or cold. It was quiet. Every seat was filled. The air felt heavier than ever. 5 empty human seats still stood in the corner. Chancellor Corrin stood at the center. His face looked older now, tired and worn. When he spoke, his voice was softer than Lyra had ever heard. "We gather today not to speak of laws," he began, "but to admit what we failed to see." The leaders around the chamber listened in silence. For years, we laughed at humanity. We called them reckless, dangerous. But in the end, it was they who saved us all. Corrin turned to the empty seats. His voice broke slightly. "We were wrong." Lyra stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She held her breath for a moment before speaking. "We survived because of them," she said. "But their sacrifice means nothing if we go back to our old ways. We need them, not as enemies, not as outcasts, as partners." She turned to Corrin. "Bring them back." Corrin nodded slowly. He looked around the chamber. "All in favor of restoring the human seats?" Every hand in the chamber rose at once. Corrin stepped down from the platform. He walked toward the empty seats and placed his hand on the symbol of Earth carved into the stone. "I invite the human race back to the Galactic Council," he said, "not as strangers, as equals." The chamber doors opened. Lyra turned to see the human fleet's survivors enter the room. Soldiers, officers, engineers. They walked slowly, with quiet, steady steps. Their eyes showed loss, but also pride. A woman in a dark uniform led them. She carried a small case in her hands. Inside was a single badge, the command symbol of Elias Ward. She placed it on the first human seat. No one spoke. No one needed to. The council stood as one. The human seats were no longer empty. Later that night, Lyra stood on the council balcony. The stars shined brighter than ever. Corrin walked up beside her. He spoke quietly. "You were right," he said. "You saved us." Lyra shook her head. "Elias saved us all." Corrin nodded. "What will you do now?" Lyra looked up at the stars. She smiled softly. "Keep watch. Make sure we never forget. Make sure we never repeat the same mistakes." Corrin placed a hand on her shoulder. "The galaxy will need you." Lyra nodded. She knew her work was just beginning, but she also knew she wasn't alone anymore. The humans had returned. The galaxy had stood together. And now, they had a second chance. A new dawn had begun.